execution of policies. How will this initiative ensure proper coordination among the various ministries and agencies of government? What should Nigerians expect from the cabinet members after undergoing this retreat ahead of their inauguration? These are some of our talking points on Good Morning Nigeria today. I am Juma Yusuf. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to the program being broadcast as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. We're Africa's largest television network. Now, as always, the complimentary part of Good Morning Nigeria will include newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, we begin with the morning news, and here is our colleague Nolene Ebel Ame. Good morning, Nolene.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Jumai, and good morning, Nigeria. Here is the early morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari is optimistic that with effective implementation of the next level agenda, his administration's 8 years will have laid the grounds for lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty and placing the nation amongst the world's greatest. The president was speaking at a two-day presidential retreat for ministers designate preparatory to the inauguration of the Federal Executive Council.
Back the frontiers of terrorism, we are actively addressing other challenges such as kidnapping, farmer herder violence, improving the safety of our roads, railways, air traffic, and fire control capabilities. We are steadily turning the economy around through investment in agriculture, manufacturing, shoring up our foreign reserves.
Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has described as unfair and unfortunate attempts by some people to misrepresent President Buhari's comments on the non-utilization of foreign exchange for the importation of food into the country. Speaking to newsmen on the sidelines of the retreat for ministers designate, Mr. Emefiele said the president's directive is in line with the Apex Bank's foreign exchange policy management. This, he explained, started in 2016 with the ban on the importation of 41 food and non-food items into the country.
What we will say from the Central Bank of Nigeria is that this president has made this comment purely to strengthen the position of the Central Bank of Nigeria. To say, yes, he believes in what the Central Bank of Nigeria has been doing since 2016 and that there is a need for us to reinforce that on, going forward. And I will say that, to be honest, we would aggressively go more into the list of items that are being imported into the country and that we think can be produced in Nigeria. And we would, and I would like to stress that we would ensure that more of these items get onto the list of items that are going to be restricted from accessing foreign exchange in the Nigerian banking industry, not just from central bank source. Why should we be exporting jobs to another country? Today, we are complaining that there is a high rate of unemployment, leading to some extent the level of insecurity in the country. Why should we allow people to import food that can be produced in the country? We need to improve the wealth in our rural communities, and I'm saying we will not change course. We will even be more aggressive on this program.
Anti-corruption officials from 12 African Commonwealth countries are joining forces to fight illicit financial activities through a training that will build capacity for strategic management of anti-corruption agencies. This with a view to promoting economic growth and stimulating investment to improve the living standards of citizens in member states.
The task of fighting corruption is not only peculiar, but it's also sophisticated. To be successful, anti-corruption agencies must also stay ahead of these criminal groups.
It's better to prevent people from having opportunity to be corrupt than chasing thieves.
We have a whole unit dedicated and focused on how to prevent, how to make the education, because education starts at school. So we have very good programs for the youth, since primary school to tertiary education students.
The presidency says chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Babatunde Fowler, is not under any investigation. This is in response to recent media reports hinged on a letter from the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, which merely raised concerns on the negative status of the tax revenue collection in recent times. The statement signed by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, draws attention to the remarkable improvement recorded under his administration at the FIRS, which includes an increase in the number of taxable adults from 10 million to 20 million. The statement adds that notwithstanding, concerted efforts are still being made to bring a lot more into the tax net. The National Hajj Commission of Nigeria has cautioned Nigerian pilgrims over violation of immigration laws as they await their return from Saudi Arabia. NACON Commissioner representing Northeast, Anjuma Salihu, gave the warning when he visited Bauchi State pilgrims in Makkah.
Congratulate them on successful completion of their Hajj, and then we condole them because Bauchi lost 2 pilgrims. After that, we talked to them about the program of our return journey to Nigeria. We told them that there's a policy on ground which usually first in.
They advise us to make sure that no pilgrims should abscond himself. The way we come is the way we are going to go back to our own country.
Nigeria has joined the rest of the world to mark Humanitarian Day with a focus on better ways to protect humanitarian workers in the course of duties. Correspondent Ilyasu Aliyakubu reports that the 2019 celebration has its theme celebrating women humanitarians.
ECOWAS Commission is happy to work with all partners to sensitize the public during peace and conflict times of the need not to see humanitarians, particularly female humanitarians, as targets.
In the course of my work, I would not say there are no challenges. Psychologically, there are challenges. Even balancing family and work life is a challenge as a woman humanitarian. But if you have the passion and you have the calling and you have the zeal, there is nothing that will stop you from being a humanitarian.
2 new HIV-1 and 2 rapid test kits have been evaluated and recommended to be among the first-line test kits for use.
Well, experiences
as beautiful. Court. You find that on page 7. Army invasion. Court orders CBN to pay Benue communities 8 billion naira. That's on page 7. Oyo Ita to resign. Absence at presidential retreat fuels speculation. Abuja native accuses IMN supporters of rape and assault. You find that on page 5. 5 killed as 2 buildings collapsed in Jigawa. That's a very sad one there. And I carefully selected new ministers. That's coming from Buhari. Just below the masthead, FIRS boss not under investigation. That's coming from the federal government. You find that on page 10. And court refuses to stop ministerial inauguration. That's on page 12.
Now, let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun newspaper has as its lead story, financial crisis imminent. And that's according to the federal government. Financial crisis imminent, with 3 riders, raises issues over target realization in tax revenue. Experts blame government and prepare for laborious days, Buhari tells incoming ministers. The other headlines there on the front page are other headlines that we've read. Yes, Oyo Ita. There's actually, I think there's need to clarify this. There's a difference between resignation and retirement.
Where?
In the public service.
Yes.
If you say, look, you're sending in your letter for early retirement, it's different from resignation. The effect is, the impact, of course, is the same, that you vacate your office. Yes. All right, but it's the
official implications
are different, yes. All right, Bayo, let's...
Yes, and running stories, just 2 running stories. When you talk about Ibi, the issues that come to mind immediately is the alleged kidnapper Wadume. Now, Daily Trust has published circumstances how Wadume escaped. Wadume, by the way, is his nickname. What do you mean? And it is corrupted, and they call him What do you mean? That is why you have the name, others call it Wadume, but it's what do you mean? That has become his nickname. The killed soldiers, the injured ones, and also Wadume were all taken first to the military base. It was said that later on, a captain drove Wadume, who was in handcuffs, and leg chain to his personal residence, Wadume's residence. There in a welder was called who cut free Wadume from the chains on his leg and the handcuff, and that was from the point for which he disappeared. The other story about Ibi is that contractors are reported to have mobilized engineers and materials to Ibi town. This is for the purposes of the bridge across River Benue. And citizens of that area are excited because for over 40 years, they have longed for a bridge across River Benue. And that is said to be a second gateway from the FCT to the northeast because it links Taraba, Adamawa, and parts of Borno to the north-central part of Nigeria. For 40 years, the people have waited, and now the bridge is here. Also, another running story, an 8-man committee has to investigate the alleged falsification of exam records as well as sexual harassment at the University of Abuja has been named. The committee has 10 days to submit the report investigating a female agricultural student who was allegedly exploited sexually in an attempt that was reportedly stopped at Gwarempa. This is involving the student of the Agric department and the dean of that faculty.
Okay, from the blueprint we have similar stories, but something that is quite interesting here is Governor Zulum goes spiritual, raises Quran against IDP's food theft. That's quite interesting. And coming back to rape issues, women raped to death in Makodi. That you find that on page 8. And bandits kill 4 in Katsina. 20-year-old Jigawa woman dies in landslide. And World Bank blacklists 6 Chinese firms in Nigeria.
What?
You know, it must have been a fortnight or so ago when we revisited the issue of sexual violence,
yes,
particularly out of Benue, and that's one other headline being read there. Well, this is not an attempt at stigmatizing or stereotyping, but what could it be? Is it selective reporting that you keep hearing these kind of stories out of Benue? What is the sociology that predisposes the state, as it were, on account of the reports that we get to hear from time to time with regard to sexual violence and what is being done about it?
Yes. In fact, Daily Trust today has also a column highlighting sexual harassment in the Ahmadu Bello University. Right. Currently there are some under investigation, but the university has taken very stern measures for which it is using to check it. In fact, the university had to learn the hard way. A lecturer was convicted when the lady reported to her husband and the lecturer was trapped in a hotel in Kano. But the case went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court cleared the lecturer on the grounds that the lecturer was engaging the lady in the hotel room as her supervisor, looking at Chapter 3 of her project. So with effect from that, university is now very careful. They want full proof before they make sure, and they are very stern with this circumstance. Talking about Benue, you recall that we have the incidents of a father and a son raping a girl. We also have the latest development of a 10-year-old girl that has put to bed, and these instances of rape there. I don't know what to say, but generally across board, you find out that there are instances of rape reported across, even with students in the universities, where you expect intellectualism, you have this gangsterism also going on. I think it's general anomaly in the society.
That's right. It's unfortunate, and particularly, I mean, back again to the Arbiter, you were talking Chapter 3 in the hotel room. Okay, well, I mean, it's funny, but actually it's very serious. So where would they do Chapter 4, Chapter 5, and the conclusion?
In the university.
Where did they do the literature review? Baya TV, thank you very much for being around.
Thank you too.
Okay. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our item for discussion this morning.
They are there at the crack of dawn, They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
And now, to begin our discussion, let's take this report by House correspondent Adamu Sambo, State House.
The retreat is designed to prepare and sensitize the ministers designate on the status of policies, programs and projects of government and the roadmap towards the delivery of its priorities as encapsulated in the next level agenda. President Muhammadu Buhari, who congratulated the ministers designate whom he said were chosen by the country above others, hopes that they will be in tune with their roles and responsibilities in the changing times as the nation's course is charted for a sustainable future.
Honorable Ministers designate, it is a great privilege for you to be called upon to serve in these great offices of state, and you must grasp the chance with two hands and put in your best efforts, as Nigeria today needs top managers to handle our numerous challenges.
The President said they will also be expected to ensure that the agencies under their ministries are effective, efficient, and accountable in the discharge of their responsibilities as the government sustains efforts at securing the country, improving the economy, and fighting corruption.
We have recovered hundreds of billions of stolen assets and are actively pursuing control measures to tackle leakages in public resources. We will not let up in fighting corruption.
Although the ministers designate were chosen to represent their states as a constitutional imperative, President Buhari, however, insists that it is vital for all of them to work as a team and, most importantly, as Nigerians. Convener of the retreat and secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, told the appointees that as the president's aides, their legacies will lie in how much support they have been able to give in the task of moving Nigeria to the next level, and not how much patronage extended to close associates and supporters.
This call to service requires all of us to fully share in the president's vision and agenda for our country. As members of the president's team, it behoves on us to join him in providing the leadership required to develop Nigeria and lift the bulk of its people out of poverty. You will be required to work to the high standards of integrity, discipline, and dedication that have been set by the president in his long career in the service of the country.
What I hope to contribute in the next level is to help towards strengthening the growth of the economy. Our economy has been growing consecutively for the past 8 quarters, but we need to increase the rate of growth, because as long as our economy is not growing at a rate higher than our population, then the impact of the work that we're doing will not be felt by the common Nigerian.
I think the President Muhammadu Buhari has set a very clear agenda for this administration and also for the country. He has kept faith in the past 4 years. As we roll into the 5th year, we see an attempt to consolidate and also build a lasting legacy.
The SGF encouraged them to participate actively in sessions of the retreat, which he said will shape the way they will work over the next 4 years.
All right, thank you very much there. That was our correspondent Adamu Sambo at the State House giving us a background for our discussion this morning. We have guests with us here in the studios as well as at our Lagos Network Center. First, let's welcome Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity. Malam Garba Shehu, pleasure to have you with us on the program again.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Otive Igbuzo. He is Chief of Staff to the Deputy Senate President. Dr. Igbuzo, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And also in the studio we have Chief Michael Ajayi, Political Affairs Analyst. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And in our Lagos studio we're being joined by Professor Oladapo Afolabi, former Head of Civil Service of the Federation. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, once again, a pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria. But let's begin from the inside, and that's where we're bringing in Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Shehu, tell us, what is the whole essence of the retreat and the preparation for a takeoff of the cabinet, which is expected to be formally inaugurated tomorrow? What is the whole essence, by the way?
Well, let me begin by saying that I think it is an extraordinary kind of effort. I'm not sure we have seen this before. You're looking at the television pictures, you could see that virtually everyone involved in governance in the country, well, take away the judiciary, was in the room. The leaders of the parliament, ministers designate, all of the permanent secretaries, all of the chief executives of the government agencies were also present, including those prosecuting key, assignments like the war against corruption, security, and all of that. So you can see that that the journey to next level is taking off on a note of unity and unanimity. The government has big aspirations. And as we have heard from the president's speech, in addition to, getting them to learn teamwork, to work as one, there is the desire fervently to lift Nigerians, a large section of the Nigerian population, out of poverty. The president has set a target of 10 years for lifting 100 million. Given the challenges of population explosion that we face, he spoke about this country being about 200 million going up to 411 by 2015. Very scary scenario. But the work has to be done. This administration then aspires to raise revenue because we are coming short in many areas in our ability to fund the government and to do projects. We must create jobs. The government aspires to increase power availability to Nigerians, to increase industrial and agricultural output, and to complete the many projects that are littered all across the country, including the ambition that we have to create new ones. So it will take everyone doing their own part. As I said, the parliament, the executive, everyone coming together so that the journey to the next level will be a fruitful one.
So we expect to be impacted by these new ministers, and any policy or cardinal objective of government is meant for the entire country. So how does this new cabinet intend to impact on the next level agenda so that we can have the trickle effects when it comes to the states and local government areas? How would they liaise? What will the synergy be like?
Well, as I said initially, the idea is that there must be teamwork. As the president said in the speech, you need to know what the next person is doing. Communication is very essential. Nobody wants a situation in which ministers would operate in silos and not talking to one another. In addition, to all of that, the functions in the cabinet would bring them together and sorry, the question was...
the trickle effect from the federal government to the state and local government levels.
Okay, so there's a sense that so much is happening at the center and on matters such as, say, the fight against corruption, for instance. There's a sense that we are doing so much that is not happening in the states and in the council areas. So if you are talking about trickle-down effect, that means that the governments at the state level and lower levels, local councils, must be brought into the entire picture and carried along. If you could see, you had seen from the television, again, pictures, the leader, the president, the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum was himself seated in the room. The thing then is that it isn't going to be sufficient for President Muhammadu Buhari to wield the whip, forcing everyone into line, whether on matters of corruption or good governance or projects implementation. The states, everyone must just tag along.
Okay, Garba Shehu, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Dr. Otiva Egbuzo. Part of what Garba Shehu said has to do with the optics from the retreat. But from a management point of view, what is the utility of this kind of exercise?
I think that the exercise is very useful. And I suspect that the initiative is to address problems of the past. Every government comes into power based on campaign promises. And the executive is expected to implement government policies, programs, and projects. And in the past, what we see is that ministers are appointed, they are sworn in, and they move straight to their ministries. In the first few days, you see grandstanding, you see statements of intents, and but in reality, we find out that many of the promises in the past have not really been translated, to actions and performance. And many people also go into the ministries without knowing the status of what has been done in the past. So they spend a lot of time. I'm sure, Kingsley, you remember. You spend a lot of weeks trying to just understand the state of the ministry. But the government has they made a committee to audit the policies, programs, and projects. There is a report on that, which is given to all the ministers. So the status of their ministry is known. Apart from that also, at times we make the error that if you are a professor of telecommunications or communications, if they take you to any ministry, you can just start and run. There is mechanics of translating policies to programs and programs to projects to be able to meet the needs of people. There is mechanics of turning budget to service delivery. There is even mechanics of design of projects. And it's not everybody who has become successful in one profession that is able to deliver in others. In fact, what we have seen from our advocacies in the past is that many people do not even see the need for a long-term national development plan for a country. So a retreat like this will bring the ministers to focus that first, ministers are to deliver services. Because one of the things that in the past 30 decades, it appears services is disappearing from national discourse. So a retreat like this will make the minister to focus. Look, if you are administering a particular agency, that agency has a mandate. And what you are expected to do is to deliver on those services in line with the promises that the party has made during the campaigns. So that have to come. And secondly, part of the problems in the past, which I think this retreat will also try to address, and the president made it clear, the need for teamwork and unity. And when we talk about teamwork and unity, it's not just about cooperation. It's unity in policy, unity in philosophy, unity in implementation, unity in execution. Because the party, for instance, has an ideology, which is social democracy. And that ideology is expected to inform the kind of policies, programs, and projects. So it is not surprising that a party who has its ideology as social democracy will deal with issues of social housing, so that there is mass housing for citizens. We deal with issues of public schools, especially public primary and secondary school. We deal with issues of public hospitals. You know, we deal with issues of lifting people out of poverty. Like the president has promised to lift 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years. And globally, we know that if you want to lift people out of poverty, one of the key areas is social protection. And that is why in the next level agenda, there are a lot of provisions for how to increase jobs, how to increase the earned power from 9.2 million to 15 million, how to increase people who are doing entrepreneurship and businesses. So the retreat should be able to give an opportunity for the minister to have a strategy and work plan to deliver on all of this.
Right, sorry, just before you comment, the Empower is not 9 point something. That's the school feeding program.
Yeah,
that
the school feeding program, yeah.
Top. That's right.
From 9.2 million to 15 million.
Yes, right. We'll be coming back to you on that. Now, I would like to go to Chief Michael Ajayi. You're a political affairs analyst. The campaign slogan for the 2019 election for the APC was the next level. And this retreat is seen as a preparation for the next level agenda. You know, and it centers all around the next level. This has been the talk all year through. So what is your comment on the retreat? And do you think that government as it is going to really, really bring these ministers together to make sure that we achieve the next level before 2023?
Yeah. Personally, I want to see the retreat as a more of agenda setting for this administration. And retreat usually is a serious business. It's not a tea drinking affair. The country is faced with so many problems: unemployment, insecurity, power problems, and so on. So, and the president had, in his speech, gave a heuristic guide to the ministers. And that was the center of their discussion, to come out with strategies of accomplishing this task. In other words, where the minister designate were expected to do a sort of surgical analysis of these problems. I don't believe they are angels from heaven. They are part and parcel of Nigerians. So they have been witnessing these problems. They have been seeing them. So, and I believe that in their own silos, they should be able to have been thinking along that line. And you, as you have mentioned, they are part of the next level. And so the retreat is expected to draw out the presidential vision, mission statement, and strategies of accomplishing the task. Don't forget that in the area of economy, we have suffered so much. And the Nigerian Stock Exchange report in the first quarter said 166 billion naira foreign investors fund has left. We need to do a lot to attract foreign investors. And the president has rightly mentioned the issue of security. It's also strategic. The report of the Inspector General of Police has not been helpful. I mean, it has not been something that has made us be very happy, where you find that over 600 people had been kidnapped, 1,075 killed. The president is concerned about the level of insecurity that has affected, that has scared foreign direct investment. So we're expecting that the ministers designate should be able to discuss. And just as Malam Garba Shehu said, he said the hall was filled with security officers, top security brass. They are expected to come out with strategies of accomplishing this. If they can lay that foundation, if they can lay the foundation of having good security in the country, I think we're on the proper way to moving to the next level. In terms of employment, the issue of, in terms of economy, the issue of unemployment is so critical. With what my colleague here has said, lifting 100 million people from the poverty line is not a joke in a country of 200 million. So the youths are restive. We need to come out. It's not the duty of the president alone. It's a collective thing, and that's why they are brought in that room, to think and work as a team. So you don't go to your ministry and work as if you are not part of the system. The entire ministries, constitute a system. They have to work as a system. And in this, I also want to suggest to Mr. President that most of the appointees are top brass politicians. And we have to be mindful of the role of the effect of 2023. And I want to also suggest to Mr. President that by the time he's going to the media, there's need to review the list and see those who have devoted more of their time to partisan politics than addressing these challenges that Mr. President has also identified. Don't forget, this is the last lap of the relay race, and the president wants to brace the tape very well. So where there's divided interest, where the ministers are spending more of their time in politicking towards 2003, there's need for a review, a midterm review. If you are spending much of your time in nocturnal meetings, it means you are no longer part of the regime. You are already moving out of the next level. Because if you are part of the next level, you are supposed to be in 100%. So if you are putting in 50%, the president needs to drop you. So we expect, Mr. President, to take this into adequate cognizance that by mid-term, there is need for a very good review. Those who are interested in 2023, because they have already started discussing who is going to be the president, where is it going to be zoned to, the president should be very mindful. These people are not going to work for the next level. The president needs to review.
All right, thank you very much, Mike Ajayi. Let's go over now to our Lagos Network Center, where we earlier introduced Professor Oladapo Afolabi, is the former head of the Civil Service of the Federation. Professor Afolabi, sorry we kept you waiting. You've had the benefit of listening to the three guests we had with us in the Abuja studios. You're a veteran of some of these presidential activities, including retreats, of course. So, on a general level, from your experience, how useful are retreats of this nature, and how might the lessons be carried forward once the ministers, when they are sworn in, then retreat to their various ministries? Oh, sorry, we appear to have some audio challenges there from our Lagos Network Center. So while we await the clearance by our engineers, let's return to our three guests here with us in the Abuja studios. Back to Malam Garba Shehu, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President. Of course, the nitty-gritty of some of the issues that will be engaging the attention of the minister designate and all others who are participants are not matters that, of course, we can discuss on air. But from a point of observation, it's always the case that there are usually testy relationships once the ministers get to work. How much of this has been addressed? A number of them are also veterans. Some of them are returning ministers. Others, of course, have been chief executives of their states. Testy relationships first with the bureaucracy, usually headed by a permanent secretary, and a testy relationship with the parastatals under them. Is this a matter, or are these matters being canvassed in the course of this retreat?
Certainly is one of the key issues. Actually, the retreat, is divided in two, thematic, chapters. Yesterday was essentially policy, and today is going to dwell on the operationalization, of the government, and so therefore. And I'm surprised that Professor Afolabi is speaking to you from Lagos, because he was seated in the room yesterday. And so therefore, of course, it's possible that he has gone back to Lagos and will be speaking to us from there. But I'm saying to you that he, along with the veterans of the public service, Alhaji Yayali Ahmed was also a former head of service and secretary to the government, Madam Ama Peple, also a former head of service of the Federation and minister. So they are all in the room. And the idea is, so how do we, because as we said, it's always a test, especially permanent secretary, minister relationships. I mean, it's routine at cabinet meetings. You have complaints here and there. And they too, when they meet, the permanent secretaries at their own forum, it's also reported that they say ministers are exceeding limits and all of that. So we are counting on the fact that these veterans who are there, they will help to show the way so that relationships will be smoother and that output will be optimized. It's interesting also that these ones that we are talking about are providing an essential bridge to the past, because essentially you find that a lot of the problems we face today are not themselves new problems. They've been confronted by the nation over, and the studies have been made, and a lot of the times maybe the outcomes of those studies, investigations, are kept somewhere and they're not being dealt with. So we hope that there will be a link between the past and the present, and we learn from all of that has happened.
Okay, Malam Garba Shehu, thank you very much. Now, we understand that our lines to Lagos are now okay. Professor Afolabi, we have to apologize for that. And by the way, Garba Shehu was saying that you were part of the retreat here today, and he was wondering how you got to Lagos. Did you go on a broomstick, as used to be said in the past? But of course, there are two issues on the table. I would like you to take the first one, just making your general observation with regard to how useful a retreat of this nature is, and then once the job starts, what could go wrong, and how might you hedge against that, or how might the operatives hedge against what might go wrong?
Thank you very much. As I said before, retreats generally are useful to brainstorm, evaluate yourself where you are, learn from the past, and chart a new course to do better. This particular retreat has been designed in such a way that the audit of the last performance was brought to bear, and the items were evaluated along real focused area, about 11 thematic areas. This, to me, is a very good initiative, and it opens door for participants who will be in the new administration, who will deliver the manifesto, to receive the charge and hear from the horse's mouth what the focus area should be, and give also the opportunity of interaction, of realizing that, yes, I'm a minister, yes, I'm a chief executive, but I'm not alone. I cannot deliver alone. I have to be in the team. So the teamwork agenda is set both in terms of delivery and interpersonal relationship. So it's really a good environment for people to set the agenda and take on the charge. Well, you say going forward where we can have ECOPs, actually this retreat gives the opportunity of reading the body language of each other, understanding what will be the likely personality issues. Because, you know, governance, administration, they are people-centered, they are people-driven. In the room, we had the technocrats. We have the political leaders in the room. And as our government machinery is designed, the accounting officers are also there. So they've started warming up. And one of the topics that will also be discussed today, which we always discuss over and over again, is how to keep good relationship between permanent secretaries, ministers, and other chief executives. These are areas where you could have some frictions, which again could affect the overall delivery. But this kind of retreat, this opportunity of interaction and actually bringing out case studies of experiences in the past also helps us to understand each other better. So it is really, really a good initiative, and we encourage that even after this induction, as it were, we have on a half-yearly basis a review of how we have done so far and how are we been able to interact. How are we broken down the silos without breaking the content? How are we synergized? What more, what else can we do to improve ourselves to deliver better? So a retreat all the time is good, just as the word is. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Afolabi, the message of the president yesterday at the retreat is caution, caution, caution to the new ministers against any act of insubordination and the government aversion to zero tolerance for corruption. So what's your take on that?
In terms of caution, corruption, you know yourself that resources in Nigeria, when they are frittered away through unguarded spending, through stealing, through all sorts of reckless ways, affect us as individuals. A rich country is actually seen as a poor country when you fritter away all of this. So it is a very, very good warning that, look, I am here, I am zero tolerant to corruption. Those of you who are my angels, my ambassadors, who will implement my program, you must buy into my vision. You must buy into my personality. You must buy into my standard. And I am for this. Corruption should be seriously tackled. Otherwise, we're going to waste a lot of our resources. It's not just corruption in terms of money. There's also corruption by not doing what you are supposed to do timeously, by not yourself being conscious and highly responsible as required by the engagement in which you find yourself. All of this, the president laid out very clearly yesterday. So I will also request of whoever is taking up public office to know for sure that you don't enrich yourself because you have this opportunity. Your service should be people-centered. How do you improve everybody's life? Raise the living standard of everybody, even more than 100 million people in 10 years. This should be your major preoccupation and not self-aggrandizement, self-enrichment. And I hope that along the line, as we progress in this administration, we're going to also review ourselves in terms of what the remunerations are, what are the rewards are, so that those who perform well, those who meet target are adequately recognized and so rewarded. Those who are not are, of course, made to suffer. This will be my recommendation, so that they know they are not fit for purpose.
All right, Professor Afolabi, thank you very much. I will return to you in our Lagos Network Center. I just wondered, just before I bring in, perhaps I should suspend it, but I was going to ask Malam Garba Shehu, because my colleague Jumai asked the question of cascading down the policies and programs and projects at the federal level down to the subnational entities. And this just occurred to me. The ministers will be inaugurated tomorrow and then assign their portfolios. We've had a ministry, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Does the federal government still need to labor itself, as it were, with rural development, when that should be the primary focus of local governments and states?
It's a big area for everyone, and I think that the welfare of Nigerians is the primary focus of government, the purpose of government under the Constitution. And so therefore, you cannot say that only a section or one arm of the government, one level of government, should be engaged with the matters of welfare. In all of these things we are doing, rural development is about provision of roads so that farmers can evacuate, to the city center, to the markets, provision of health and education. There's a role for everyone in it, and I don't think that it would be right that the federal government, with the enormous resources available to it, that is excluded from this sector. Left to themselves, I don't think that the local councils, especially given the way they have been managed so far, can sufficiently deliver on that.
And the states?
And the states as well. I'm not being accusatory, but...
all right. Well, but I think it's a matter I will return to subsequently. Otibe, now back to the issue of the retreat and some of the key issues at the retreat. I raised the matter earlier with regard to the often acrimonious relationships you find in worst-case scenarios between ministers and permanent secretaries, who, of course, have the directors and others behind them. But then you also have the parastatals. In your opinion, what would be the best leverage for all to ensure that at the end of the day, service, which is one of your key focal areas, gets delivered, without all the encumbrances of the often antagonistic relationships that we get to see?
Yeah, I think there are many things that can be done for good working relationship and for service to be delivered to the citizens. And it also even flows from the question you asked, Malam Garba Shehu, in terms of the role of the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Our country has evolved over the years. And whether we like it or not, federal government is intervening in different levels. There are agencies of federal government with specific responsibilities for rural development, for instance. And we know that the federal government is supposed to set the standard and policies that will guide, while implementation in many cases is reserved for state and local government. But there are also agencies of federal government, like Basin Development Authority, Rural Electrification Board, and many others, agric, agencies that have roles to deliver. So what is required, is a framework. And that framework should come first from a national development plan, not a federal development plan. A national development plan that will have contributions from state and local governments. So every level, we know at which level they are implementing. Then going to the implementation, it's not even only just ministers and permanent secretaries and directors, but ministers and ministers of state.
That's right.
So, first is a clear delineation of duties for each level. The ministers are the political head who give direction, who give, political leadership to the ministry. The permanent secretaries are the bureaucrats that are meant for implementation. And if you look at it, many of the problems arise when principles, framework, and due processes are not followed. So once the principles, framework, and due processes are followed, and people do their work in accordance with laid down procedures, then the level of friction will become low. And at times it's personality issues or people refusing to share power and responsibility. And so I think that is why having a retreat like this and building teamwork is very important. My suggestion will be that even when the ministers go to their ministries, they should have their own internal retreat, where they will now say, okay, this is the grand plan that we have gotten from the national retreat. In our own, what is the strategy? In fact, for me, the focus of our ministers, ministries, department, and agencies should be on the how. Because in terms of the promises, in terms of the direction, whether it's economy, whether it's security or anti-corruption, the government has given that clear direction. And I've always made this argument that the challenges facing Nigeria are huge and enormous. But society has developed that what needs to be done is known. If you look at the educational challenge, for instance, what needs to be done to deal with education, whether in terms of quality of teachers, or in terms of infrastructure, or in terms of inspection, or in terms of the content of education, or the pedagogy of training, what needs to be done is known. If you go to agriculture, whether in terms of input, or in terms of post-harvest losses, or in terms of land management, or in terms of access to credit facilities, what needs to be done is known. If you go to job creation, whether in terms of creating an enabling environment for business, or in terms of attracting foreign investors, or in terms of focusing on the job-generating sectors like tourism, like infrastructure, or even in terms of having a macroeconomic framework and implementation strategy that have job generation as a key issue, all of these things are well known. So what ministries, departments, and agencies need to do is to go to their ministries to ensure that these processes are put in place and you focus on operations. Who is to do it? When will it be done? How will it be done? What resources are available? And you have a clear work plan that you follow. And you have a monitoring and evaluation framework to monitor your progress, identify challenges as they occur, and deal with them. And once you do that, you will see that services will be delivered to citizens.
Okay, you've raised a lot of issues here now. I would like to come to Chief Michael Ajayi. The retreat, from all indication, was designated to make ministers be aware of the fact that they will give full account of whatever their ministry is doing. And there will be increased check and balance on the ministers. Maybe it will be quarterly or yearly. We don't know about that. But do you think that the system as it is in Nigeria now, the public will be made aware of these check and balances by government, all revolving around the next level agenda?
Thank you very much. Of course, the society itself, or the citizen, they are very conscious of the affairs of government. And on one hand, or the other, on the other spectrum, they constitute a check and a monitoring team. And to this end, I think I should suggest that the president is aware of this, that there should be a presidential monitoring team that will constantly give an independent report of the performance or performances of each ministry and each minister. Once this is done, I think the president will be able to assess the performance of the ministers and the ministries and see if their effort is in tandem with the next level agenda. Just as I said earlier, we had so many problems, and it will be sad if a minister is not patriotic to the extent of marrying his job very well. I want to talk about the issue of security because that is the main issue that the president actually talked about. The food baskets of the country, northeast, northwest, now the insecurity is dovetailing to the south. We need to adequately, handle this area very well because it's going to affect the GDP on the long run. The manufacturing sector needs to be raised so that we can solve the unemployment crisis. In the area of power, revolving between 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts for a country of about 200 million is not good enough. A minister should come. This is not the job of the president. The president said, these people were carefully selected. So you are among the best they have taken. So that is an opportunity that you must demonstrate that confidence that the president has reposed in you. So if you are a minister for power, for instance, I don't expect you at the end of 4 years to still be telling us that we are within the framework of 5,000 megawatts. If ordinary Singapore, from third world economy to first world economy, with a population of 5.6 million, is generating about 13,000 megawatts, consuming 7,000. Malaysia is producing about 32,000 megawatts, with a population of 32 million. South Africa is generating 42,000 megawatts. And Nigeria, with 200 million, haven't spent $16 billion on power between 1999 and now we are generating 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts with system collapse every time. A minister should see it as a challenge. How do I contribute to the next level? How do I raise the level of power supply? The distribution leg has been a challenge. How do we come out of this? And the president has rightly said when he was campaigning, he's going to revisit how the power was, outsourced. So I want to appeal to him to look at this area. Because once the power problem is solved, you have solved so many problems. If you go to the rural areas now, most of the artisans are just sitting down waiting for the politicians to come and dole out 5,000, 10,000 and so on. These stipends cannot survive. Most Nigerians want to start going abroad. But you can, like Andrew in those days, you can keep them back at home. And that is when they are fully engaged. So a minister for power should not come and tell us at the end of 4 years that we are still within 5,000 megawatts. That is a critical way to assess the distance. Do not forget, please, that as we move towards 2003, the performances of these ministers determines the direction of the victory of APC. So it is a big challenge the president has given to them. So they should not see it as the duty of the president. He is a leader. He is a coordinator. He is a coach. He is a mentor. But the players must play. Once a coach has given you the needful, it is your duty as a player to deliver. So he has told them yesterday that they have a duty to deliver. And we as citizens, ordinary citizens, will continue to monitor and see their performance. And the social media is also there. The media houses are also there to identify the areas of performance. Where the minister is doing well, he has said he should be commended. And where he is not performing, he should be shown the road out. So for the next level, we hope that all the ministers will work as a team and make the president to shine.
All right, Chief Michael Ajayi, thank you very much. Back to Professor Oladapo Afolabi in Lagos. Professor Afolabi, the issue of performance evaluation has come up from our guests here in the Abuja studios. But some persons will also argue that one of the more effective ways of actually evaluating performance is when you lay down, as a marker in the first instance, your key performance indicators. That's so-called KPIs. From what you know of this retreat, are we expecting key performance indicators and therefore also the more effective performance evaluation? You suggested half-yearly retreat to take a look at that, but what is on the table from what we are seeing at the retreat?
One of the strategies for taking up the charge yesterday was our breakout sessions into 11 thematic groups. In each of the groups, the interim report that was submitted was that agenda was set in each area. Security, food security, education, industrialization, poverty alleviation, upliftment, empowerment, and all those areas. The groups discussed, including corruption, and targets were set, both in terms of time, short, medium, long term, and KPIs were generated. What shall we achieve and score ourselves high that we have done so well? So all these KPIs are already embedded in the plan and in the implementation strategy. What I expect, and one of the things that will come out that will be useful both to the participants, the ministers, and all the stakeholders, and including the public, will be a Gantt chart that shows clearly what those performance indicators and monitoring arrangements are. And these things have been taken into consideration, both in terms of general plan and attention at the retreat that is ongoing. I think the way this retreat has been arranged, and looking at the caliber of people and the level of discussion, in the room, you see that we have people who know what they are doing, people who are conscious of targets, and people who are conscious that they will have to report on their stewardship. This is good news to me. And as our political analyst, Mr. Mike Ajayi, said, the public will also be strong participants to give us a feedback as to how they enjoy the performance of each and every one of the players. But as it is in the document, all these KPIs are included.
Professor Afolabi, I still would like to stay with you and then backtrack a bit on the question of relationships. There are 43 ministers designate, and presumably we are unlikely to have 43 ministries. So there will be ministers of state. Otiva Ibuzo reminded us of the relationship sometimes that can be very rough between the minister and minister of state. We do hear that all ministers are equal, they are of the same rank, but you were a permanent secretary. I wouldn't remember if you served in any ministry where you had a minister or minister of state. There have been instances where the minister had given instructions, as it were, to the permanent secretary that all issues pertaining to a minister of state must be verified and approved by him, who is his substantive minister, and also to heads of departments and agencies that none of them should report to the minister of state without first clearing from the minister. How might this kind of antagonistic relationship be avoided at the next level?
A major topic which has always been an issue and is going to be discussed today, and there will be delivered, the lead discussant will be Alhaji Yayali Ahmed, who also is a veteran. He's been a minister, he's been head of service, he's been a secretary to government. From my own experience, both as a permanent secretary and as head of service, the issues are there. They're usually person-related. The framework for who does what, the duties of the Minister of State, they are well spelled out. Of permanent secretaries, well spelled out. But once in a while, you have personalities that refuse to align. And one of the things that we give as training to our permanent secretaries is how to handle such issues. Once upon a time, I had about 3 ministers in my ministry, 2 ministers of state and the minister, who the other ministers will not want to refer to as the senior minister. But indeed, we don't use that kind of nomenclature, but in practice, you really have a senior minister. For example, there are salary differentials. In terms of who signs memo to council, who makes presentation to council, is of course the full minister. But some ministers who are ministers of state sometimes don't want to accept this situation. But this retreat, for example, will give a kind of consciousness, some awareness that this is the situation that exists. And again, from the caliber of people that I see yesterday, I don't think, and I hope there won't be such frictions coming up. As for the permanent secretaries, he has to be extremely, extremely alert to his duties. He cannot be partisan in any of the situations. He must rule by the books. Of course, he won't be rigid, but he'll be flexible to the extent that nobody is shortchanged and no rules are broken. This is the way we have trained permanent secretaries to manage situations. When you have a very good permanent secretary, you have these sort of frictions reduced, because a permanent secretary is not only a bureaucrat, he's also a diplomat, he's also a technical guy, and he's an all-rounder. My hope is that in this next arrangement, such situations will be reduced to its barest minimum, or they will not even show up at all, because there is clear delineation of duties and assignments.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Oladapo Afolabi. We'll come back to you in the course of the program, but we need to take a break now. When we come back, Good Morning Nigeria continues.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back, and I still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. We have reactions that have come in by way of tweets sent in by viewers. You can see Twitter handle right there at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen at NTA GMN. We'll go through the tweets now and then return to our guests. Comrade Alhaji Ngala tweets, now a retreat for ministers designate is in progress. I urge our president to remove any minister not performing well in his or her ministry.
And Law Alpha C tweets, for me, the exercise has become too much ado. Government should assign portfolio to them so that they can hit the ground running, taking into consideration the many challenges on the table of this administration. One cannot but be bothered by huge sums of money spent on this exercise, with ministers designate for the opting time. Assign portfolio to these people and start fixing the economy for growth.
Mike Anyakwa, now the retreat for ministers designate is very important. It will afford them a great opportunity to appreciate the big tasks ahead. The president should set targets for them which must be achieved without excuses. The ministers designate themselves should see the work ahead as thankless but a service to the nation.
And Mutana Farouk tweets, I urge the ministers designate to be passionate and patriotic about their duties. They should not hesitate to consult, synergize, collaborate, cooperate, and be prayerful. They are not the best Nigerians for now, but they could be the best at the end of the opportunity given to them.
Akeju Olagbaju tweets, I detest the word retreat on the basis of its true meaning and would rather call it a colloquium. Such gathering should afford them the opportunity to appreciate the socio-economic gains and problems of the country and begin to set agenda to address them directly. Says not a retreat, but a colloquium. There are two different issues, by the way.
Yeah, two different issues.
But anyway, our guests will respond to that.
Yes, Sani Michael Omokaji tweets, retreat prepares the minds of these ministers on the tasks ahead. But it's unfortunate that after all of this important festival, that's what he calls it, some of these ministers would underperform. As a measure of any minister caught sleeping during this retreat should be disqualified outrightly. Malan Garba Shehu, what are the workable and sustainable mechanisms streamlined by this administration to bridge the inexplicable economic gap between the political elites and the poor masses?
Malan Garba Shehu, has any of the ministers designate been caught napping in the course of the retreat? Okay, Ogo is the next tweet that we have. Retreat is good. It will put them in the mood of what they're about to face. But turning policy and program to work is most essential. I believe they are capable.
And Titus Monday Knock tweets, hope and pray that this crop of ministers coming on board will supersede their predecessors. There is so much suffering in the land. One would expect much from the ministers of defense, labor, power, economy, industry to do more to reduce the sufferings of the Nigerian masses. Please.
Dele Jack Solomon, it's a welcome development that the performance of all the ministers will be closely monitored by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. This is the only way the presidency can ensure the implementation of various programs and policies. The retreat will ensure building a strong platform for synergy and teamwork, acquaint the appointees with the roadmap for delivery of government's priorities at the next level.
And Ashiru Mohammed tweets, the retreat would enable them know the huge tasks ahead of them to make next level a reality. However, setting targets to make them is desirable so that their performance can be measured across specific key performance indicators that should translate to improvement in the lives of majority of Nigerians.
Abdul tweets, the incoming ministers must give their utmost to deliver on the government's agenda. Economic development must be the main focus because with increased economic development, social vices the country is currently facing will be tackled headlong. No more excuses.
And Tekwara Connect tweets, we clamored for specifying the portfolios of ministers before the screening, thinking that it will change in 2019. But the same thing, retreat is good, but giving them portfolios would have prepared them for the tasks ahead long before now. We pray for a better Nigeria.
All right, those are some of the tweets that we are accommodating at this time in the course of the conversation. Otive, there was one tweet that raised the semantics of whether a retreat or a colloquium. Maybe for the benefit of our viewers, we need to clarify that.
I think, like you said, it's just mere semantics. A colloquium is usually when you gather people to come and discuss specific issues with papers presented. But for many government, the beginning of a government like this is usually termed retreat because they retreat into an area and reflect, on past policies and then plan for future. So I think the most important thing is the outcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Chief Mike Ajayi, I mean, you talked about security, yes, that is fairly obvious. You also talked about the need for economic development and the ministers going forward. Well, in all of this, what should be the role of the citizens in tracking and monitoring? And, of course, being a voice that indeed that is supposed to first receive the service and also evaluate ministers.
Thank you very much. You see, the social media to a lot of people has been seen in a negative way because the way it's being used. But you observe that the social media itself has constituted a big force. Most of the information that you don't get through the public media, the traditional media, the print and electronic media, you get them through social media. It doesn't cost them anything to begin to send photographs, detailed information, detailed analysis, and so on. Whatever the honorable ministers will do privately, unfortunately for you, is already in the public domain. And that in itself is a big check. That is the role of social media. Although it has been seen with a negative, it has its own negative perception, but it plays a very key role as a check. You can see what happens abroad, you will see it, you will read it here in real time. So every minister is conscious of that. I believe if you are a leader in any place, you'll be conscious because as you walk, even your subordinates are already watching you. Before you know it, either the pictures are already in the public domain. Whatever you do, you think you have done privately, is already in the public domain. And virtually everybody has a smartphone already. So that in itself promotes a lot of communication, a link, and then a check. Apart from, we have the apathetic masses. These ones, they don't give a damn whether something is good or bad. But with the level of consciousness that these smartphones, this Internet of Things have brought about, it has considered to me a big check on our leaders. And I believe that most of them we work very hard. And as an extension of that, because we've not really discussed the area of economics so well, which is critical.
We discuss economic matters on Good Morning Nigeria routinely.
Well,
yes.
Well, because it's critical to the success of the administration. And particularly in the area of petroleum, we spend so much on subsidies. Spending about 11 trillion naira on subsidy is not a good thing. The president has promised to ensure that he de-escalates that. We want to see the minister in charge of petroleum doing a lot of things about that. We have crude oil. We don't need to be importing crude oil. We have to improve our refining capacities. Is that we outsource them or we find a solution to them? We shouldn't be waiting for Dangote's refinery that will come up in 2020. The refining capacity of his complex is 650,000 barrels per day. Is not even adequate. The combined refining capacity of our 4 refineries is 450. Not enough. If Singapore refines about 1.1. So a minister should take it as a challenge, even not only from the retreat, as a personal challenge. Because just as I said, we are all not from the moon. We are bred here. We know our problems. Whatever anybody wants to say about the Nigerian economy or Nigerian politics, we are part and parcel of it. It's not like the colonial masters that were brought in that need to study. Every day we eat it, we see it. Either you are in some place, there's no power outage. So most of these things we need to look into. But one credit that must be given to this regime, particularly the president, is the fact that we've not been having queues as we used to have in those days. We spend most of our time 24/7 queuing for fuel. That we have not seen in the past 4 years. That is a good thing. So a minister that comes in should make sure that that is where the public will monitor. The day we go and see long queues, then he should begin to mark his report sheets. And I don't think a minister would like that. So he should de-emphasize importation of fuel because we have the raw materials, the crude oil.
Okay, Chief Ajayi, I was just wondering, Otiva, the role of the citizens in performance tracking and evaluation. Yeah. How might this be? I mean, the social media, as Mike was referring to, can't be a chaotic environment. as you very well know. But otherwise, how might the citizens themselves be fully engaged in the governance process?
Well, for me, I think that the future of this country and development of the country depends on how citizens engage. Every government in the world is made to account through four main means. First is internal accountability mechanism by the executive. 2 is oversight by the legislator. 3 is media. And then 4 is citizens. But all over the world, not only in Nigeria, politicians in the executive and the legislature will not put stringent measures upon themselves unless there are demands from citizens and the media. And if you look at many sectors in Nigeria, take the electoral sector, for instance, who are those pushing for transparency of elections? It's media and citizens group. But, and you know, one of the things that this government has done is putting a framework for more citizens' engagement through signing the Open Government Partnership, OGP. And OGP, and I want to see in the next level agenda, more prominence being given to the Open Government Partnership, because the second National Action Plan is being prepared. And if you see in the past 4 years, government has set up the Citizens Portal for the budget. And for the first time, if you look at it over the past 4 years, over 3 million people every year access the federal government budget from the website. So apart from the social media, citizens are engaging. In Kaduna State, there is eyes and ears, where citizens monitor budget. We know that in the past, there are reports of people initiating project in Abuja, making payment for it, and, you know, without execution. But now, with open budget that this government is promoting, people can know which project is located in their village and get report on it and post it on the Citizens Portal. So for me, the progress, increased accountability that we see in this country will depend on how the media and citizens engage with this process. And there are a lot of ways that citizens can engage through monitoring the budget, monitoring project, monitoring city elected officials, even their lifestyles, because there's also even lifestyle audit that is done. And with these processes, the executive order, dealing with unexplained wet orders. If your lifestyle is not commensurate with your earning, citizens can raise those issues. So for me, I think that the media and citizens' engagement holds the future for the country.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Otive. Malam Garba Shehu, one of the cardinal points of every government is the proper implementation of the budget. The Senate has given a timeline of October. Do you think after the swearing in of ministers, September, the deadline can be met?
Yes, but please, before I go to answer your question, I think coming from the government, yes, I have a duty to, I think, correct one or two, numbers that have been issued, especially by my friend, Chief Ajayi. A subsidy, we were talking about under recovery of fuel costs, not as exactly a subsidy, but even if you call it subsidy, it's not 11 trillion. I think it's in the region of about 600 billion. And this retreat is going to tackle that. The discussion is ongoing. I don't want to preempt that. It's not up to 11 trillion. In fact, the budget itself is a 9 trillion budget. It's about 600. Power, he also mentioned power availability, about 3,000. Power availability is about it's more than 13,000 megawatts. Transmission about 9,000. However, because of the nature of the discourse we have, they're only able to take between 4,000 to 5,000. This retreat is also talking about how that monopoly can be broken so that there will be new people that will go into, the sale of power. Again, he talked about the stock market going down early in the year, first quarter. There is no country in the world where there is election and the stock market doesn't go back. because people hold back investment, take away money until after the leadership is determined, and then they are comfortable, then they resume. So it's not, and again, security also, he mentioned, security is a challenge that keeps changing. It has always been there, it will always be there. If you deal with farmers, herders, new challenges will come, you have to deal with them. The ability of governments, I think, to rise to the challenge is the more important thing. Now, going back to the question of budget, would they pass budget? If the Senate, House of Reps, they want to pass the budget in 24 hours, they can do it. I can assure you that the thing is, look at what they did with the ministers. We have never had it like this. In about a week, they had cleared all of them, and it was a thorough job. They sat from morning until sundown. So therefore, I think that, yes, budget will be done. And the happiness of what is going on at the region is because, in fact, we're already discussing timelines now for even key legislations in a PIB area, the anti-corruption and all of that. So the parliament and the executive come and say, set timelines for key, and this is going to be beautiful for the country.
Yeah, but not in 24 hours.
Madam Garba Shehu, thank you very much. We would have asked you to take a bow and go now. But let Professor Afolabi